episode of Kitchen Table Talk. I'm Tina, it's Malachi, and my other co-host to the right is Tamara Johnson, better known as Ram.
Hey, yeah.
We thank you for joining us today. We know you could be doing a myriad of other things, but we're glad that you decided to stop here and sit down at the table with us. And before we get started today and introduce our lovely guests, because you know season 2, we just rocking this season. We got guests and everything.
Yes.
We have evolved and we are yet continuing to evolve. We appreciate you and your diligence in growing with us. And we want to give a shout out to Going Live Catering because we asked and he delivered. All our goodies today, sandwiches, fruit, cheese and cracker for our entire taping was all donated by Going Live Catering. You guys went over to Going Live Catering, support him in his efforts.
I don't think y'all understand how fancy we're being. We actually have cheese and crackers. That's what she said. Cheese and crackers. That's not a normal snack for us folk.
Oh,
Cheese and crackers.
it's
We
not.
definitely elevated this season.
What was our snack?
So you
last
moving on
season?
up like the Jeffersons.
We in a new neighborhood
We got some
now.
fancy wraps and fruit. I mean, he just laid it all out. He wanted to make sure that we was going to be comfortable for the entire day of our taping of season 2.
Absolutely.
All right, so what are we talking about today, Ram?
Well, so first of all, let's introduce this lovely lady. Her name is Miss Sharna Tolson.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Everybody say hi. Miss Sharna.
Hey, Sharna. So, we want to say thank you for joining us today on the show. We know that you could have been doing many other things, especially with this topic that we're about to talk about. But you chose to be here and to help us put on the table the things that we've considered important and that can be helpful to others.
Yes.
So today we're going to be talking about with you, Sharna. We're going to be talking about sacrificing yourself so that you can take care of loved ones.
Yes.
That's a
So
powerful
give us.
topic.
That's a very powerful topic, and I'll let you. I mean, you can do it best. So
Okay.
give us a little background with that.
Well, my background is I'm the youngest of 3, and the whole trilogy started in 2003 when my brother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He lived for 2 weeks, and 6 months later, my father was diagnosed with colon cancer. So I took care of my dad along with my mom, but at a point, my mom couldn't accept the fact of what was going on with him. So I had to step in pretty much as a caregiver, a daughter, a partner, all those things. So we took care of my dad for 3 years, and then 6 months later, after my dad died of colon cancer, my mom got diagnosed with dementia. So that's where the real journey began, because it was just myself, my sister, and my mom left. And my sister and I, we alternated within taking care of my mom. I would drop my mom off at my sister's house during the week, and then I would pick her up on, they would drop her off on Friday nights, and I would keep her Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So that worked for a while, along with the changes of dementia. If you know anything about it, it's a very debilitating disease. So we did that for 3 years, and then it came to a point where we couldn't really do it anymore. It was really hard. So we had decided as a group to put my mom in this facility. Well, she was in there only for 2 weeks because I didn't like the facility. I didn't like the way they treated her. I didn't like the things that I saw. So when I told my sister I was bringing her out, my sister was like, pretty much basically, you're on your own. So because she lived far away at the time, so she couldn't do it.
Right.
So at the time, I'm still working a full-time job, taking care of my mom. So pretty much the last 5 or 6 years, that's how it's been. So I would go to work. I worked Monday through Thursday, Tuesday through Friday. I would be off on Mondays, and what I would do when I was working, I would come home from lunch, because I had great bosses at the time that would let me come home for lunch and feed my mom, because at that point my mom couldn't swallow well. So the caregiver that I had didn't feel comfortable feeding her. So I would come home on my lunch and I would bathe her and feed her a little bit, until I got home at 5 o'clock, and then my shift started again.
Never ending job.
Never ending.
Right.
Never,
Very
never, never ending.
selfless job.
Yeah,
too.
never ending. And so I did that, like I said, for another 4 to 5 years, pretty much.
Mm.
And so did I give up a lot? Yes, because during that time, I had no one to watch her on the weekends. So it was like 7 days a week, 12 months a year. It was me and my mom.
Right.
And so, I'm sorry.
No, no, no.
And so at that time, I just made the sacrifice that, I love my mother.
Right.
And can nobody take care of my mother better than me?
Right. Were you in a relationship, or did you have any extracurricular things going on that you had to stop doing so that you could be there for your mom?
Well, yeah, because I was pretty much an outgoing woman. I did a lot of things. I traveled a lot. I had good friends that I would hang out with. So when that point came, a lot of that had to halt because I didn't have anyone to watch my mom.
Right.
So
Yeah, people don't really understand the magnitude of caring for someone and the things that you do have to
Yes.
sacrifice your whole basically being
Yes.
almost to care for because it's kind of a two-edged sword. Like you said, y'all had made the decision to put her in a home.
Mhm.
That in itself
That's hard.
Yes.
brings about so much guilt.
Yes, it
You know what I
does.
mean?
Yeah.
yes, it
It's
does.
like, 'cause I know I talk about it all the time, not to make light of it, but I'm like, I already know they're gonna stick me in something.
I wouldn't. Jasmine would. I wouldn't.
And that's the funny thing, because we had always said that. I'd always told my mother that I would never do that.
Right.
But
yeah.
at the same time, I was still working
Mhm.
40 hours a week.
It's what do you do?
And
Right.
her care was getting more greater, and it was something that I couldn't do. So that 2 weeks that she was in there and I said, no, I'm just gonna have to make it work.
Right.
So you felt guilty.
I felt guilty.
Right.
I really did. And I said, no, I'm gonna take care of her till I know that I can't do it
Till you
anymore.
can't. Right.
So I did that. And so it was at a point where my mother, you would think like, okay, is this how my life is gonna be? Because you never know when that day is gonna come.
Right.
So did I get bitter at times? Yes.
Absolutely.
Did I get lonely at times? Of course.
Right.
But at the same time, I said nothing lasts forever, and this is my mom, because if the roles were reversed,
Yeah.
she would do it for me.
But when you think about it, she did it for you
Already.
already. Like
Yes.
when you were born, you
Yes.
couldn't take care of yourself, so
Right.
she had to be there for you, and she had to adjust her schedule for you. So
Right.
this is kind of like, if it gets to that point, it's payback. It's
Right.
not payback, but in return,
Right.
I'm doing this in return because you took care of me.
Right.
But I get it. It's different. This
Mhm.
I didn't have you. You had me. But
Correct.
the feeling is can be like you said, you feel a little guilty when you do feel like you need to go and put them in a home, or
Right.
you need to have someone come and care for them because you want to go out or you want to do
Right.
this. So at what point did you say to yourself, I have to stop doing all the extra stuff that I've been doing. There's no more traveling, there's no more going out on dates, there's no more hanging out with the girls. Did you completely stop, or did it just kind of dwindle off?
No, you know what? The point when I said, no, she has to be with me is when I walked into that nursing home. Because the first thing was, part of the program was you couldn't see them for a week. My mother and I and my father, we were very, very close. I visit them every single day, no matter where. So for me not to see her for a week, caring for her all this time, it bothered me. And then when I finally got to see her, she was different.
Mm.
She was totally different from when I had dropped her off.
Mhm.
So it was one situation that happened that I didn't like, and I called her nurse and I said, I'm taking her home.
Mhm.
So I made up my mind then. My mom's gonna be with me till I know for sure this is it, that I cannot give her the care that she needs.
Right.
And when I did that, she was back in a nursing home, but even though she was in a nursing home, and this is the thing about caregiving, you still have that bond where you cannot let go.
Yeah.
Because even with my mom, I still went there every single day. On weekends, I sat there all day long, and I would even get up in the middle of the night and go visit
Just
her.
go check.
And go visit her at 3 o'clock in the morning. I wake up, let me go check on her. I just need to see that she's okay.
Yeah.
And even though they told me that, no, you can't do that, I still did it anyway.
Right.
See, that's
You know.
very, very, very respectable, because I have a big issue with this particular topic that we're talking about, because growing up, I've seen so many families just fall apart and just like no one's there to hold it together or even be willing to because of the sacrifices that they would have to make. And me, this lady right here, she raised me with the core values that family is everything.
Yes.
So I've always believed that even if you have differences and you don't get along, I've always felt like if your family needed your help, you should be there. That's what unconditional love is.
Correct.
You always should be there. You don't. It doesn't have because that if you're not, that's when it becomes conditional.
Right.
I don't want to be here for you because you hurt my feelings last week,
Right.
or we got into it, and I see who you really are. Like family is family, regardless of however they are.
Right.
And I've told a lot of my friends that. My little homies, we always talk about certain things, and I always be trying to get them to like mend the relationships that they broken, the bridges they burnt, because it's not that important. It never was, and the family that you built should be there forever.
Right.
When you up and when you down, it should always be there. If you lose all your bridges and then you have nobody that you can fall back on, it's a cold life. It's a cold world.
But
So I really,
I hear what you're saying there, but in this instance too, it's also the fact that you have to go to work.
Yes.
You have to eat so that
Yes.
you can take care of somebody.
Yes.
And oftentimes when it's caring for a loved one or whatever, it's like, okay, what do you do during the day? Because we as African Americans, we're just really not taught to prepare for long-term care.
Right.
And it's very important and very critical that we do start to begin to instill that in generations to come.
Right.
Prepare for long-term care
Absolutely.
because it's costly.
Yes, very
You
much
got to
so.
go to work.
Very much
It
so.
is. You got to pay somebody to sit there.
Yes.
And
it's not cheap
it's not
because
cheap.
I know even when I was looking at places to come in, unfortunately, thank God I had a family member to come in and to help, but she was limited as well because she was afraid to do certain things. So I still had to step in and come in on my lunch break and do things. But even places, they want for the minimum $20 to $30 an hour, and you have to do a minimum of 4 hours.
Right.
I work 10-hour days.
Yeah.
And to what you said as far as us as African Americans not taking care of or not preparing for that long haul, it's almost like it's taboo. We don't have the conversation. We don't talk about death. We don't talk about life insurance. We don't talk about burial insurance.
All the necessary
We don't talk about the
things.
necessary things. And it's very important that we have these conversations because when it comes, you want to be prepared. You don't want to put your family in a position where they're doing the GoFundMe and we're doing car washes and now or the body is sitting for weeks and weeks and weeks because we don't have the funds to bury our loved one, right?
Yes.
Or
you are
in her
absolutely right.
case, to even have somebody come and sit for
Yes,
a couple
absolutely.
hours a day because, like, it's costly.
It's very
And not
costly.
only is it costly, it's difficult, especially when you're dealing with cases of dementia.
Yes.
Because what's difficult about that is they're in and out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they can get confrontational.
Yes.
And not even know who you are.
Yes. And that's the thing. I've had those situations, but I want to piggyback on something that you just said. It's people are afraid to talk about the inevitable. And I was fortunate that when my father was diagnosed, he sat me down and he told me exactly what to do. And he made all the arrangements with my mom before she was even diagnosed.
That's important.
So it's like a lot of the things I didn't have to do because they were already planned. But as being a caregiver, I'm still a daughter.
Right.
But now I'm a caregiver and like a mother and a doctor. So it's like you're all these roles. So for me, I never really got the chance to just grieve
Yeah.
because I went from one family member to another.
Your brother,
wow.
then your dad.
Then my dad, and then my mom.
Yeah.
So when
Wow.
it was all over, I was lost.
What happens after that's over? How do you get back to normal?
For a while there, I didn't, because it was like my time was so consumed with just taking care of her till when that day came when she was no longer here. It's like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Where do I go?
That was 4
Because-
years?
That was almost 5 years. Total of 7. And it's like, okay, because I didn't have any friends anymore because they went on doing their things. I didn't have a loved one. I wasn't in a relationship. So it's like, what do I do? Because I can tell you, even the day I buried my mother, my family members went home and I was there by myself. I went to the movies.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Because it's like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And you know what? And I always say, we have people, they come while, once your family member passed away, they are there before the funeral, right? I personally think the most important time for support is after.
It
all
is.
of that.
It is.
I've always thought that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, after everybody get through coming
And
to eat
they're
the
back there
chicken
normal
and all of
life.
that.
They go
Yes.
back to their regular everyday life.
Right.
Now here I am still left with, these grieving issues of processing. So what advice would you give to someone who has let go of everything so that they could take care of whoever their loved one is, and now they're going back into the regular life? What would you advise them to do
The transition.
to transition back into?
Well, the best advice is to give yourself time. You have to give yourself time to grieve, because being a caregiver, you're so caught up in the motion that you don't have the time to grieve. You don't have the time to process everything that you've been through.
Right.
So you give yourself time to process it, and then find yourself. Find you, a new you.
Because it's going to be a new
It's
year.
going to be a new you, because
Right.
your life experiences have changed.
Absolutely.
So you have to be willing and open and know that what God does, He does, and don't question what He does. And let go and know that they are in a better place. Now it's time for me to live. And that's what I had to do. And 3 months later, I met the guy that I'm with now, and we've been together 6 years.
Oh wow, well, that was a good
Yeah.
thing to that,
So,
right?
it's a situation that I wouldn't regret, that I don't regret. It's a situation I would do it again,
Absolutely.
because honor thy mother and thy father, and your days will be long.
Yeah.
That's my whole
He
motto.
says it. He says
That's
it.
in the word.
That's the word. What is your relationship now with your sibling?
With my sister, we're really good. We don't see each other often, but we talk on the phone, and we talk about my mom sometimes, and I tell her, you did a good job. You did what you
That support
could do.
right? Yeah.
Because she was further.
Mhm.
My mom was here with me. So we talk about it, and then we move on, and we talk about the next chapter of our lives.
That's good.
Were there ever any times, because realistically, when you're in it, did you ever kind of get angry because you were the only one?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's times I want to choke her out because I'm the youngest.
Right.
She's the oldest. My brother was
Right.
already passed, so it's like I shouldn't have to carry this torch.
Yeah.
Right.
This should be your torch.
Right.
But at the moment when I was in it, I didn't understand it.
Right.
But now that time has passed, I understood why she did what she did, because some people can't handle the whole thing.
Right.
And my sister can't handle
That's
that kind
very
of pressure.
important to even
Yes.
recognize that,
Yeah.
because that is the case a lot of
Yeah.
times.
Not that they just don't
Don't
want
wanna
to
do
do
it.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't have the capability to hold
Exactly.
it all.
Because it's
Yeah.
a lot,
Yeah.
because you're dealing with negativity all the time. And she did what she did, and I appreciate what she did, but my strength is a little bit different from hers.
Yeah.
I could handle a little bit more than what she could. Plus, I was single. She had a family.
Right.
Yeah.
So the responsibility for her was trying to juggle two, and it's kind of hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know one thing, because I grew up in a family where we cared for my uncle.
JC.
Skippy, he was gone before you. And but growing up as a minor, it felt like eternity. We had somebody always that we were taking care of.
Yeah.
But the two main people was my uncle, who was a quadriplegic. We moved out here to care for him after my grandmother had died. And then later on, a great grandmother, Phoebe, who was blind and in a wheelchair. So we had one blind and in a wheelchair, and one end of the room, and a total quad in the other end. And they both needed total care. And we were 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up until high school before they both expired. And it was very hard on us as children,
Yeah.
because it always felt like a responsibility.
Yes.
We were changing bedpans and putting them in lifts and all that kind of stuff from early on. We were taught to do it. So our childhood did not feel normal. And as horrible as it sounds, it's my truth.
Yeah.
It was like, we don't have to do that
Yes.
anymore.
Right.
It sounds horrible,
It
but
does.
it was not true.
It's
We
the
couldn't
truth.
go outside like the
Yes.
normal kids. We had to be caregivers.
Yeah.
Yes.
You
Because
know?
it's almost like being in bondage.
Right.
Because it's like you have to readjust to their program.
Yeah.
It's not that they're readjusting to you.
Yeah,
Just like
right,
with my
right.
mom, I had to adjust to her because she would have sundowning, which is, at a certain time of the day, She would get sometimes combative, sometimes she would get very nasty with her words, you know, so it's like, I would take it personally. Sometimes when she
Right.
called me names, I'd be like, oh my God. But I had to realize that's not my mother.
Right.
Yeah.
That's someone else.
Yeah.
So I had to, did it hurt my feelings? Of course.
Oh
Did it
yeah.
make me want to say, you know what, I'm done? Of course.
Right.
But when I got to that point, I
That
was
is
just
that what
going
that
to run.
called sundown?
Sundown.
I didn't realize it.
Yeah.
When it was happening to us, my grandmother would accuse us of all kinds of things: stealing, teaching her dog, killing her dog, just all kinds of stuff. And,
Yeah.
and then it seemed like when, as kids, we would try to have company over, or sneak company over, and
What? Oh, yeah.
at the most inopportune time, my uncle would always have to go to the bathroom. I would be like, Lord
But see,
Jesus.
the funny thing for me, I didn't even have company, but my mother would be on the phone. She got somebody in that room. I didn't even have company. And I'm like, what is she talking about? Because, you know, the mind thing, they would
Right.
hear
Yeah.
things. And so it's like, I wish I did have company right about now.
Right,
But,
right.
you know, but yeah.
See,
So,
I never had to grow up in an environment like that, but I will say that I definitely see how hard this extreme environment is because growing up, we like to go over our cousin's house all the time. And whenever I went over to Auntie Lisa's house, I would always
Yeah,
watch
mama.
Lisa and Chastity take care of Mama.
Right.
And, you know, I would help out, do what I can. And to me, it felt normal, just like it was always there my whole life. Since I was young, we always went over there and took care of Mama. And it was a normal thing, so I never realized how hard it was until I got a little bit older and actually saw how much it impeded on a lot of their lives.
yes.
Because you had to go home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to escape. I would just see how bad, you know.
Oh no,
it got.
it's turning in the middle of
Yes,
the night.
man.
You
Trying
gotta-
to get out the house.
Right, just
You know?
and what I'll say the disadvantage today is because I'm in adult residential care. Back when we did it, you would never think that would be what I do.
I was really like,
Honestly, that's my bio too. It's like this was the last thing that I wanted to do because growing
Right.
up it was like I'll never take care of another human being. but
Look at you now.
right, look at me now.
Got your
is-
Stevie
it
Wonder
is-
glasses
it is-
on and everything.
But to that end, it would now you made me lose my train of thought. But what was I going to say? It was I don't know. It'll come back
But you
to
know
me.
what, Tina? It's so funny because I went to school for LVN.
Uh-huh.
And I went to school only because I knew it was going to be a day when my parents were going to need help.
Oh yeah.
And I did that. Now, I didn't work anywhere else.
Mhm.
But I knew when that day came, I would be prepared.
Right.
So when the doctor would come and talk, my mother had just tuned him out because she couldn't understand, she didn't want to hear it.
Right.
So he would talk to me and I was like his wife in a
Mhm.
sense of making sure everything was
Yeah.
together.
Wow.
So it's funny how you say how, you go back to things that you think you would never do
Mhm.
because I tell you all the time, I love geriatrics.
Mhm.
And my thing is, I said, once I retire from my old job, I want to work with geriatric patients
Right. Yeah.
in an Alzheimer's care facility.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and that's probably what you'll end up doing. Now that you got all that back, you are the expert in it. You
Yeah.
become an
Yes.
expert
Definitely.
in caregiving, and not only that, as a result of it, I require a standard
Yes.
in my facilities
Right, yes.
because I know what it's like.
Exactly.
I will never ask them to do something that I haven't done
Yeah.
or that I won't do.
Right.
So I expect the best quality of care.
Right. Because of your
And he knows.
Yeah.
he
said,
he
"I'm out."
started out working for us.
Man.
But Malik was actually, my two sons were a natural. They were a natural at
It
caregiving.
was because you raised me like
Right.
that.
Both him and Duke, they both started out with us caring, and they both were surprisingly, they were very good. Now Yasmin, she ain't touching it with a 10-foot pole. That's why I already know with her. I don't know where I'm gonna be with it.
Because caregiving is not for everybody.
It's not for
Some
everybody,
people just
right.
can't take that kind of pressure, and you have to be a strong person.
Yeah.
But I say it wasn't anyone or anything but the grace of God that got me through it
Right.
each and every time.
Yeah.
And I might be bruised, but I'm not broken.
That's it.
Mhm.
Well,
That's what I say.
That's it.
I was bruised, but I'm not broken. And that's why I'm able to be here today to tell my story, hopefully to help someone else, that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And just let yourself go through this journey that the Lord has made a path for you.
right.
But also, I think a critical key while you're in the valley is to make sure that you take time out
Yes.
to do self-care.
Mhm.
It is so important that you do
Yeah.
self-care,
Oh,
and I
yes,
think
definitely.
that's where Lisa lacked. She didn't do enough self-care, and it really took a toll on her.
Yeah.
Because you just have to establish some kind of time in there
Yes,
to be
you do.
able to get away, to
Right.
decompress, and to just do
And
you.
come back and then be available for what it is that you're doing.
That's what we do here at the Kitchen Table Talk.